Hey guys, it's Matt from the Tool Merchants. In today's video, I want to give you an overview of the German-made pitchforks that we carry. We'll talk about the different handle lengths that you have available and also the different number of tines that you can choose from and some of the circumstances that those will be better or worse in. And then we'll go over to the bench and take a close look at the heads and how they differ from some of the other forks out on the market. So the first fork we have is the 3-tine fork. Now, any fork that has 3 tines or less, they do make 2-tine forks, and I've even seen old 1-tine forks, are specialty forks, meaning this is really intended for a specific purpose, and that purpose is moving straw or hay. The 3 tines, well, of course, it's a much lighter tool because it only has 3 tines, but you can actually pick up, big bundles of straw and hay, loose material like that with the 3-tine fork. Obviously, this is just gonna, if you're trying to pick up wood chips or compost, unless it's really coarse compost, it's just gonna fall right through. So if you're moving a lot of straw or hay, bedding like that, and you want something that's gonna be the most efficient, then 3-tine is what you're looking for. This comes with a long handle, so this is about 62 inches overall, which is about standard size. And this is an ash handle. So the next fork is a 4-tine. Now this gets into a bit more of all-purpose territory because 4 tines sort of broadens the reach of this tool, right? So of course you can use it for straw or hay, but you can also use it for compost. You could use it for managing a burn pile. Depending on what the wood chips are like, you could pick up wood chips with this. If the material is too coarse, it's going to fall through, but still 4 tines is a good general purpose tool, and it's still fairly light, so if you are moving light material, it's not going to kill you lifting the tool all day. Same high quality German forged steel as in all these forks, and a nice scoop profile, as you can see. This one, like the previous 3-tine, has an ash handle, a smooth ash handle, and it's the same length of handle, but the head is slightly longer. So this, I believe, is about a 64-inch tool overall. Next up, we have what SHW calls their compost forks. Now these are 5-tine forks, okay? And 5 tines also is a bit of a middle ground all-purpose tool. Again, you're going to be able to move most anything with this, but you actually get a little bit more range than the 4-tine, right? Because the tines are closer together, and it's going to allow you to pick up things that might otherwise fall through. So I think that 5 tines is actually potentially the most broadly useful. So it depends on what you're going to be using it for, right? If you are going to be moving some straw or hay, but then you want it to have a little more versatility, the 4-tine is going to be better. But if you want to be able to get into your wood chips a little more easily and things that might fall through the 4-tine, 5 tines is going to be more versatile. Now, there's another difference, another point of differentiation here, and that is that the 5-tine that we currently carry only comes in a mid-length. So this is about a 54-inch handle as opposed to the 64-inch, so you lose about 10 inches, and it's got this lovely T-grip on the top. Again, it's got the same German forged steel. It's got a nice scoop profile. We will talk about the differences in the socket in a moment when we zoom in and get close. This one is different from all the other forks. But this is a great one if the material you have is heavier and you're going to be squatting down, maybe bending down a little bit, because it's quite a bit more handy and maneuverable to have your hand on the end here and one hand down here near the head of the tool. One other nifty feature of the 5-tine is that they flatten the tips of the tines. I hope you can see that. That helps you get underneath the whatever material you're working with. And not a deal breaker, but kind of a nice touch that they do that. Now you have 2 choices within the 5-tine category. This one's, as I said, is about 54 inches. And then we have a slightly shorter one that's about 43 inches. So depending on your height. Now, I didn't realize this when I ordered these, but this shorter one is actually a different line of tools from the same manufacturer. So it's not painted gold, it doesn't give you that gold look, and it has a different handle, and I'm not sure what kind of wood it is. It doesn't look quite as nice to me. The grain isn't as tight. Maybe it's not ash. Maybe it's some kind of white wood, like beech. But same head, same tine, same spacing and all that. Just not quite as fine. So I think your choice here is going to depend on your height. If you're shorter, probably under 5'4", 5'5", this one, the shorter one might be nice. But to give you an idea, I'm 5'3". This goes up to about my shoulder. Now you probably can't see that from that angle. And I can just feel comfortable with this length, with this sort of wingspan. So unless you're really short, I would probably go with this one. Okay, the last one we have here is the heavy duty, super beefy. They call this a manure fork or a gravel fork. So if you're mucking out stalls and it's really wet material, really wet, heavy material that tends to fall through something that has tines that are farther apart, then this 9 tine is going to be your friend. This is also a really great fork if you're moving gravel. Depending on the gravel, you can use a shovel, but as a lot of you probably have experienced, sometimes when you're trying to get into gravel, especially if it's like crushed and coarse, as opposed to smooth, a shovel sometimes just wants to bounce right off. So having a fork like this that can really get into your gravel pile easily can be a real benefit. Now, this has 2 handle lengths. This is the standard long handle with the straight end, and this is about 65 inches overall. And then we've got about a 54-inch mid-length handle, again with that awesome T grip on the end. So for me, I like this size. Now this head, I need to get a weight for it, and I'll have it on the specs for this tool. This is a really heavy-duty tool. The head itself is quite heavy, and so adding anything extra like gravel or manure adds a lot of weight. So I really like this T handle because if I'm using this tool, I want to be down close to what I'm working on, and being able to use my whole body to lift and move that material. With that long handle, I feel like I'm way too far away from what I'm doing. So if you're a really big guy or gal, the long one I think is great. But if you're normal height or shorter, as yours truly is, I think this mid-length is a beautiful option. This one also has the flattened tines, which is nice if you're working in a stall, especially with rubber mats or something like that, and you don't want to pierce them down on the bottom. This helps you slide right under your material. All right, let's head over to the bench and take a close look at these heads. All right, so here we are at the bench, and we'll take a closer look at the heads and the sockets and talk about what makes the majority of these forks unique, the 5 tine being the exception to that rule. So what makes these forks different, the 3 tine, the 4 tine, and the 9 tine, is the way that the head attaches to the handle. So you can see that this head, and this is the 3 tine, but the 4 and the 9 are the same, has a simple round socket at the top of the head. And then, simply, the handle slides into the socket and is fastened with a single screw in the case of the 3 tine fork. The 4 tine has 2 screws, so does the 9 tine for a little bit extra strength. So what makes that special and unique is how easy it makes replacing the handle on the tool. Most Austrian style forks that you find in hardware stores, this is actually one that I'm replacing for a customer. It's an 8 tine, it's a gravel fork. Not unlike the manure fork that we looked at. It has a tang and ferrule type connector. So you can see here on the end is what's called a tang, this piece of steel that comes off of the top of the head, compared with the socket, right, that you see in the SHW. So the way that this works in practical terms is the handle has a hole bored into it at the base. And then this tang, if I could show you, slides inside the bored hole, right? And if you've sized it correctly, the tang, this portion, at its widest point, is just a little bit larger than the diameter of this hole. And so as you have to hammer them together, and so as you hammer this head into this handle, the wood is going to kind of collapse on you inside. It's going to split as you hammer the tang in, but this metal sheath called a ferrule holds it all together and keeps it tight. It's not a bad design, and it works fine until you have to replace your handle. And the challenge that I have gotten into, and I think a number of people who have asked me to fix these for them, is that it can be hard to find a replacement handle easily for this kind of fork. And part of that is they just don't carry them at hardware stores, and the other part is that you want to find the right size. And it's not difficult, but it can be a little bit tricky to make sure you've got the right size. And so I think what happens to a lot of people is these just end up getting put in the shop for a rainy day and they invest in a whole nother fork. You can avoid that if you get one of these open socket style tools. Not only is this easier to replace if you purchase a handle, but it's much easier to make your own handle. So you could go to the hardware store and buy a 2x2 and just shave it down to fit right inside there. Or you could go out into your woods, as I would do if I had the need to, and find a sapling that would fit inside there. So I think it adds a bit of resilience to your life to be able to fix your own handles easily and not be reliant on the internet or a hardware store and that sort of thing. Now, maybe somewhat unfortunately, because I really like the 5 Tine Fork, this has a tang and ferrule style connector. So up inside this handle there is a tang, just like on this gravel fork, and it slides inside a hole in the handle. So again, it's a fairly durable connection. The only trouble you get into is when you need to replace the handle, as I said, which can be done. It's doable. But that said, if you do get a 5 tine, keep that in mind and care for it as best you can, though I hope you will with any tool that you get from us. One other nifty feature of the 5 Tine Fork is that these outer tines are straight and somewhat raised from the 3 middle tines, which the middle tines create sort of this bowl, this very rounded shape, whereas this outside tine and this outside tine are straight and slightly raised. So that allows you just to get a little bit more material in your scoop and gives you a little bit more support for moving around larger scoops of compost or wood chips and what have you. So thanks for watching, guys. Feel free to leave a comment below with any questions. Always appreciate a thumbs up if this was interesting or helpful. And feel free to subscribe if you want more of this kind of thing. See you next time.